Okay, I guess we can get started. So welcome everyone to our first neighborhood meeting of 2024. And thank you all for arranging to attend this postponed meeting date. We have a great lineup of speakers for you tonight, but before we start, I need to address a couple of administrative matters. To start with, please be aware that this meeting will be recorded for the convenience of those who cannot attend and will be accessible on our Facebook page and our website, mossbay.org, starting tomorrow. We kindly request that you keep your microphones muted unless you're actively speaking. We'll reserve questions for the end of each presentation. And if you wish to ask a question, you have the option to unmute yourself and just ask it, or you could raise your hand, or type it into the chat where I can read it out, and that way it's going to be recorded. So first off on the agenda, B, are you there? Would you like to introduce our first speaker?
I wasn't prepared to introduce, but I'm always happy to introduce Allison. Allison sees all, knows all in the planning department. She has been instrumental to the city of Kirkland in so many developments and proposals and plans. And it's just, we're honored to have you here, Allison, tonight. And all of that goes, frankly, for all of you who are here tonight from City of Kirkland. We know that your job doesn't end at 5 o'clock, and we appreciate you. So Allison's going to give us an update on the comp plan process and what's happening at Houghton Village and any other bits of advice and news that Allison can share with us. Allison, take it away.
Thanks so much, B. That's all very kind words for you. And we did you one better tonight, and we brought Janice Swenson with us, who's actually the project manager for the comp plan update. So Janice is going to lead us through some specifics on the comprehensive plan update, and then I'm happy to talk about Houghton Village and answer any other questions the group might have about what's going on in the planning and building department in Kirkland right now. So I figured we'd start with the comp plan, so I'll hand it over to Janice, and then maybe we can pause for any questions that y'all have about the comp plan before we talk about Houghton Village. So Janice.
Hello, thanks for having me. I was here, let's see, let me share my screen here. Can I go ahead and do that? Yeah, okay, great. You see my presentation?
Yep,
Yes,
I see it, Janice.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was here last year with David Barnes, who was worked with the Moss Bay neighborhood with your last update, and that was adopted in 2021. But I'm happy to join again tonight and share a little bit about what we have been up to. Let's see, can you see him? Can you see my
It's not in presentation.
It's not in presentation. Okay. There we go. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay. So just to give you a little bit of planning context, several of you have seen this presentation before, but we have to update our comprehensive plans per the state requirements, and that's the Growth Management Act, and that it also includes the Puget Sound Regional Council Vision 2050 multi-planning policies and the King County countywide planning policies. So we need to be sure that all of the cities need to be sure that their comprehensive plans are updated per the latest update and consistent with other communities and the regional planning format. And also there may be follow-up zoning code regulations that need to be adopted. So these revised policies will lead to updated zoning code regulations. Also, we had a consultant prepare what we call an equity review of our comprehensive plan to look for outdated terms that may be considered exclusive to some and in the community, and also our diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging 5-year roadmap. So we're going to incorporate some revisions to the goals and policies consistent with those two reports. And so what is a comprehensive plan? It's really a guiding policy document to document the future vision and future planning growth for the city. And we're looking at the year 2044. And we work with King County and other jurisdictions to establish growth targets for new jobs and housing. So we're planning for 26,490 new jobs above 2018, and also 13,200 housing units. And over last year, we spent a lot of time on our community engagement process. Not to say that we're not including community engagement here out to the end of the comprehensive plan update, which is due to be completed the end of 2024. But we really emphasized a lot of community engagement last year. And this is our schedule that we used for talking with the community about these different topic areas, and with the most recent economic development. And I'll be going to the Planning Commission on Thursday to give them an overview of the economic development element. B was involved in one of the focus groups and for that group. So we had for many of the elements, we established focus groups, we had surveys, community conversations, tabling events at the different events. We worked with two of the high school students, and also we had presentations with many of the community organizations, including neighborhood associations and CAN. So where are we in the process? So we've gathered a lot of community feedback. We have a draft vision statement and guiding principles I'll go over in just a minute. We are really taking the deep dive into updating our goals and policies based on the regional countywide planning goals and the community outreach or community input we've received to date. We are working with a consultant on an environmental review of our draft goals and policies. So we'll be continuing to work with them on that. And the goal is and we'll have public hearings starting in April through June. Those public hearings will be an opportunity for the community to provide comments on the draft goals and policies. And the goal is to complete the update and adopt the revised comp plan by the end of this year, 2024. So we have a lot of work to do. So this is a draft vision statement. So the last vision statement for the city was for the year 2035, and it was adopted in 2015, and several of you were involved in that comprehensive plan update process. So this vision statement, we have a draft vision statement now that both the Planning Commission and City Council have reviewed. And you might say, well, what is a vision statement? It's really a verbal snapshot of how we want Kirkland to be in the future. And it sets the intention or a compass to help guide us for the future. And it sets the overall priorities for the goals and policies for what's in the comprehensive plan. And the idea is that it be optimistic, affirming, and an aspiring vision for the community for what we hope to have in the future. And it provides ultimate goals for our community planning and development efforts. So this is the draft vision statement. I need to get this up on the webpage, the project webpage. I just realized that. But if you want a copy, I can send this to you. And we tried to streamline it as much as we could, but we just felt like there was just so many good things that people had for suggestions for revisions to the vision statement. We also have guiding principles, and these are the draft guiding principles. So these really are they reflect the vision statement, but they're also fundamental goals for guiding growth and development in Kirkland over the 20-year horizon. So we're looking at 2044. And the principles addressed a wide range of topics and form the foundations for the goals and policies contained in the elements, just like the vision statement. But it kind of breaks it down. And we've got the three category or the three topic areas we've broken it into, and it really builds on the existing 2015 guiding principles, but we have the three topic areas. Kirkland, we want it to be livable and welcoming, sustainable and resilient, and connected. So here's the next part. I kind of tried to break this down into the different statements. I'll just let you review this rather than read it. And so both connected as a community, and then also connected is how we move around the city and our multimodal transportation system. And multimodal really includes vehicles, cars, pedestrians, bikes, and other forms. And also we wanted to add the importance of how technology will change in the future and how we really want to be a smart city. And we are working on having a smart, well, we have a smart city plan that we've developed, and that's available on the city's website. So these are the different topic areas or the elements or chapters of the comprehensive plan based on the community outreach and engagement we've received and the mandatory policy requirements. Planners are actively busy working on the draft goals and policies for each of these chapters, or we call them elements of the comprehensive plan. And we're starting to take these draft goals and policies through the Planning Commission for their review and comment. We also are updating the neighborhood plans for the minor revisions recommended by the Equity Review Report. And that report is on the K2044 project, the comprehensive plan update webpage. Most of these documents are. We are we are studying potential density changes along transit routes, frequently active bus routes based on direction from the Planning Commission, looking at how we can encourage more housing density along those transit routes. And so no decisions have been made there, but we're working with a consultant on what that would look like. We are, and with the Moss Bay neighborhood plan, we will make sure that all the neighborhoods have the most current format. Moss Bay neighborhood does. We are looking, and one thing we realized is that we've got history about Kirkland throughout the comprehensive plan, including the neighborhoods and citywide elements. And there's a lot of redundancy. So what we're looking at doing is consolidating the history of Kirkland in one place so that, and putting it in an appendix. And so we're not anticipating a lot of changes there for that, but we would, so for the neighborhood plans, we're looking at reducing the text for the history section and putting it in a citywide chapter, but while still describing the unique characteristics from a history standpoint for the neighborhood. Let's see. And you all will have an opportunity to review and comment on the draft neighborhood plans. And we have a new, based on direction from City Council, it's recommended that for the neighborhood planning update process, that we update it, that we look at the neighborhood plan updates with each 10-year cycle, rather than cycling through annually, rotating the different neighborhood plan updates. Now, this year, we are working on the neighborhood, the Juanita and Kingsgate neighborhood plans, doing a deeper dive, just like we did with Moss Bay, because they were the last neighborhoods that really, since annexation, they didn't receive a deep dive with the community input. So those are the things that we're looking at. We will have draft neighborhood plans for review before the public hearings. We've got several public hearings lined up. We've grouped some of the draft elements and the neighborhood plans into different like 3 to 4 public hearings. And so this is really just a reminder of how you can get involved. We have the K2044 webpage. So you just go to the City of Kirkland webpage, you type in 2044 Comprehensive Plan Update, and up will come that project webpage. We're trying to pull all of the documents onto that webpage. We hope to have a redesign of that soon, so it's easier to navigate. So look for that. You can sign up for, you can submit a public comment for it, electronic public comment form. It's really easy. Or we have a designated email address, 2044 comprehensive plan at kirklandwa.gov, or you can submit comments to the Planning Commission. So here's some topic areas for upcoming Planning Commission meetings, and you can always go to their web page on the city's website. You just type in or you go to government and then Planning Commission, and you can review and at all the staff memos and packets for the upcoming meetings are usually, and the past ones too, they're usually put up on their webpage a week before. So like this Thursday, we'll be doing a briefing with Planning Commission on economic development. And then in March, we'll follow up with the actual draft goals and policies. So we're working on those now. So Thursdays, an update. And so we have Leandra Baker Lewis is going to give an update, a status update on the Juanita Kingsgate neighborhood plan updates and so on. So you can see the different topic areas. So with that, I'm going to, that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions that you have for me before we pass it off to Allison?
I think B has a question.
Yes, B.
Hi, thank you, Janice. That was really great report. I wanted to make sure that for people's awareness, the Kirkland Alliance of Neighborhoods has raised some concerns about the city's change in plans for how neighborhood plans will be done. And it's going to be the primary topic of our meeting on January 31st. The meetings of the Kirkland Alliance of Neighborhoods is open to all citizens. And we welcome you to come. It'll be in the Peter Kirk room on Wednesday, January 31st at 7 o'clock, and you're welcome to join us.
Sorry, B, is that in City Hall, Peter Kirk room?
Yes, it is. It's in City Hall on the south side of the building.
Got it. Janice, I saw that you had a slide that had the timeline for 2023. I was wondering if there's a summary of what's going to happen in 2024 as well, maybe on your website somewhere.
Yes, let's see. Do I have an updated schedule? If I don't, I will make sure I have one. We do have an external meeting schedule. I'll make sure it's on the webpage. But you can always also go to the City of Kirkland public meeting calendar, but I'll make sure that that schedule is updated on the project webpage.
Jean has a question.
Early in the presentation, there was a comment that part of the comprehensive plan talks about increases in jobs and housing. I'm interested in I will look at that data. One of the questions is are the jobs identified by the salary levels, and are the housing identified by affordability?
We, oh, Allison, you want to talk about that or?
Go ahead and start and I can
Oh,
hop in.
Well, I was just going to say that the cities work with King County. Well, first of all, Puget Sound Regional Council, the anticipated growth, what the region's going to do, and then also the counties work with cities to assign their growth targets, their share of the growth targets. Do we have, yes, we try and promote living wage or higher end jobs, but we're not always in control of that. As far as housing goes, we do have affordable housing goals and targets based on income levels that we are trying to achieve, and also permanent housing. Allison, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add the additional detail that the state passed a bill in 2022, I believe, HB 1220, that actually mandated cities to accommodate and show that we can accommodate housing numbers at specific income brackets below 100% of the average median income. So that's actually a big piece of our work on our housing element is figuring out how we can adequately show that capacity, and not just show that capacity, but try to make it a reality that we're providing housing for people of all income levels in the city. So I don't hesitate to say that housing is probably the biggest piece of work that we have in this comprehensive plan update. Not only because of the city's goals and the goals that City Council and Planning Commission has set for us with this update, but also because of new state requirements.
Good. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. It is important that people who work here can live here.
Absolutely.
Just a follow-on question to that. Is there any thinking to how those targets may be pushed down at a neighborhood level?
I can start on that one, Janice. And so I think one of the things, just to at kind of a high level, one of the things that we've heard from input we've received, but also I think from what we've heard from City Council when they kind of gave us early input on the comprehensive plan update, is that growth is equitable throughout the city, so that we're not just concentrating it in one neighborhood or the other. We're looking at how every neighborhood can help us meet our growth targets. That being said, though, there's certainly areas that have emerged as being perhaps more appropriate for different levels of growth, such as areas that already have good access to transit that exists today. And then following up on that, areas that may have good transit in the future. So definitely looking a little closer at areas that are already zoned for higher density, but looking at how lower density areas can also contribute to new growth. So we are looking citywide, and Janice had mentioned looking at the potential for additional residential density along frequent transit routes. And so that is something that very much runs citywide. In addition to that, we are looking at some specific community initiated amendment requests where community members have specifically requested essentially rezones or upzones of sites. And so one of those is being looked at in Totem Lake in the Parmac Business Park, and that was submitted by the property owner. And that's quite a significant request. And And then there are 2 that are being looked at as part of the Juanita neighborhood plan update, one at the Goodwill site, and then another at the Michaels site in down by Juanita Bay.
Thank you.
There is a new question in the chat. Taylor is asking, will zoning be altered downtown for higher buildings in the comprehensive plan?
For now, we're not looking at that, but as a result of the transit corridors, we may be looking at increasing density and height throughout the city along those frequently, transit routes. So can't say for sure, not planning on it right now, but we're still studying all of those things.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Janice.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Houghton Village.
Let's do it.
All right. And so I don't have a presentation for you. So if it's okay, I'll tell you what I know, and we can talk about it if that's okay with y'all. And so the planning and building department is working with the city manager's office, who's really leading the effort and the current goings on at Houghton Village. And so for those of you that might not be familiar, Houghton Village is the property where the PCC used to be. And so the city purchased that property, I think a couple years ago now, and has been trying to figure out, what we want to do with that long term. City council has expressed that they're very interested in looking at not only making sure that site remains, active and oriented towards pedestrians and contains community spaces, but also they've asked us to look at the potential of accommodating affordable housing there. And so there are existing neighborhood plan policies. This property actually falls in the Everest neighborhood plan, even though it's called Houghton Village, 68th Street there between the old PCC side of Houghton Village and where the Met Market site is now. That's the dividing line between the Everest and Houghton neighborhoods. And so this is in the Everest neighborhood, and that Everest neighborhood plan has policies adopted in it already that that kind of suggests that a master plan process is appropriate for that site, and through a master planning process, you can increase the height of that site up to 5 stories. And so back in December of 2023, so just about a month ago, staff took some information to council, some background information after completing some community outreach, both with neighboring properties, and then they also held a couple community forums for the future of that property. In December, we asked city council if they wanted us to go forth with a master planning process that would potentially unlock the allowance to go up to 5 stories on that site, and they did respond in the affirmative to that. So at this point, where we're at is working on finding a partner to help us complete a master plan for that site. The master plan isn't a full architectural design of the site. The master plan sets forth pretty basic things like a site plan, so where the buildings go, where pedestrian spaces go, where any vehicular spaces go, kind of the 2D version if you're looking at it from overhead of what happens on that site. Master plans can include things so specific as trip limits. So if there are limiting factors in terms of traffic in and out, a master plan can potentially set unit limits or trip limits and things like that. And so we don't quite know those details yet of how detailed this one will be, but it is a public process. So the master plan is required to be adopted by council after a public process. So more community outreach to come on that one over the course of this next year. And we're just getting going. So that's in terms of the planning and building department, that's what I know right now, but happy to try and answer any questions. And if the group has more detailed questions, I can definitely pass those along to the city manager's office and see if they might be interested. They're able to come to a meeting to follow up.
Okay, yeah, I think the main question for me was just really about understanding what's happening this year. How does our community lend a voice to to the process. So I assume there's a city website just dedicated to this initiative.
There is, yeah, and I can drop that that link in the chat after we're done here so that y'all can access it.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
No other questions? Okay, it seems like we're good to move on to the next agenda. Thank you so much for joining us and your presentation, Allison.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. On to our next agenda item. We have road repair and maintenance. We have Ryan Fowler here, Streets and Grounds Manager, the Public Works Department. Do you have a presentation to share? I can stop sharing here.
All right, can you see that okay?
Not yet. But we can hear you fine.
Good.
Oh, it's coming.
About that.
Looks good.
Okay, yeah, so thank you again for inviting me to be here. And then it sounds like I was tasked with giving you guys a little overview of the Street and Grounds Division, I think with more focus on streets. But I'll give you a quick overview of my team, and then I'll kind of move into some other details. So right now I have the org chart up. The street division is marked on top there. And there's 14 field workers in that group. We have one supervisor. But the entire team is comprised, like I said, the grounds team as well, so streets and grounds. The grounds team focuses on pretty much all the organic things. They maintain city buildings, lawn maintenance at the medians and trees, the CKC trail, and multiple other landscape sites throughout the city, like the bunnies and the deer on Lake Street there. So what we do, I wanted to include this because we get often confused with transportation, who does signals and signs and a lot of the cool blinking things. That's not us. So if there's any questions, I apologize. I can do my best to answer them if anyone has them, but I can also direct you to the right department for that. But here's a handful of things we do. The street sweeping, road repairs. And the road repairs can be a variety of things, whether it's crack sealing, individual potholes, and then we do utility patching, vegetation management, smaller internal overlays, and we can touch on that a little bit later. And we prep for slurry, and we do the snow plowing and de-icing. And I think many of you may have saw the evidence of us de-icing here the last week. So that went well, I feel. So here's kind of our work plan. It's very seasonal, as you'll pick up here. Couple quick numbers. We have 268 miles of sidewalk in the city of Kirkland. We have 660 lane miles, so that's both sides of the road. 4 acres of medians, and there's an estimate of 33,000 road trees, right-of-way trees, that is. But we just had an inventory done. There'll be more information coming out about that down the road, and I'm expecting to have more street trees in our inventory. So as you can see, in the wintertime, so right now where we're focusing on potholes. We just had that freeze, and so what happens? The water gets underneath the road, and it freezes, and the road starts to buckle in those areas, and it starts revealing potholes. Our crews are very busy out there right now, repairing those and trying to get those covered up until we get to spring. And that's when we'll be able to come back and do a better job in many of them, and putting a hot mix asphalt in to do a more permanent style patch. But we're also doing, in the wintertime, we're doing the street tree clearance, trying to get them higher out of the roads, making sure that we're structurally pruning them for the health of the tree. And busy street sweeping. So obviously when it's freezing, we're not street sweeping because we don't want, there's water involved, and we don't want to have that freeze to the ground. But we try to keep those things going all winter long, because there's still a lot of debris building up, and it helps prevent flooding from storm drains getting crowded and what have you. So we have 3 street sweepers. We try to get those going out every day. It depends on staff leveling. Sometimes we have people calling sick, and it does require, we do have senior maintenance that run those. So they have CDLs are a little bit higher on the food chain with the organization. And it's a very challenging task. It seems simple because they just seem to be sitting there, but there's a lot they're paying attention to and have to focus on as they're doing it. So it's very important that they have experienced staff doing that. As you move into the spring, we're doing the roadside mowing. That's when all the vegetation starts crowding out our roads. And we have 2 vegetation mowers that you'll see cruising around the streets, big green machines, and they take care of all the grass and the different things are growing up on the sides. We're trying to, by doing that, we can eliminate, or not eliminate, I should say, but reduce pesticide usage. So that's a big key to those is knocking down the vegetation and not using an abundance of pesticides. So also in the springtime, we're doing some utility patches. What a utility patch is when the surface water or water crews go out and they make a repair underground. They do a temp fix, and then we'll come back and do a permanent fix with the hot mix asphalt. During this time, we're also prepping for slurry, and that's part of the 2012 street levy funding that we received from that levy. So we, in conjunction with the capital improvement group, CIP, we will prep for all of that work. So they hire a contractor, they manage a contract where they come in and do the actual application of slurry. But prior to that, we go to all the roads that they're going to apply the slurry to, and we seal the cracks. We, if there's depressions in the road, we'll raise those up and put fixes in there so the slurry can go over it. And curb and gutter repairs as well. So to try to, what our goal is to make sure that road is fully functional when that fully functional when the slurry is applied, and kind of get as close to a brand new road as we can. So then that would roll us into the summer maintenance. And before we get into summer maintenance, I want to add into a lot of our work is also dictated by external requests. So because everything my team focuses on is pretty much visible, it creates a lot of requests from the community, which is great because that's how we know that there's a problem out there. So the Streets and Grounds division accounts for over 50% of the requests in the Public Works Department. The streets, as you can see, there's 400 for 2023. There was 495 requests, and grounds 434, so not too far behind. And I'll have at the end of the presentation, I just kind of have for people who don't know the landing spot for the Our Kirkland page, but it's very helpful to use that request because it's a lot more efficient if it goes through that service because it's tracked. And so it goes right into our asset management system, which I'll touch on in 1 second as well. And it's a very efficient process when used appropriately. So the summer maintenance, we're still sweeping the streets. We're doing crack sealing. We're trying to do everything we can to get the roads in the best shape possible for the winter, so we aren't getting that water underneath the roads. And we're still doing utility patching, and we do, we'll find these areas, or we know these areas that have large swaths of potholes, and we try to hit those in big milled out sections. So opposed to making little kind of square repairs, we actually go out with our milling machine. We'll make a couple passes. It could be a stretch of, it varies. It could be, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet. It just depends on how many potholes. And they're usually on main arterials that we're finding these. So it's quite a bit of work. And when we do that operation, it actually will break down from sweeping and mowing because we need so many field staff to assist in that. So then we roll into the fall, and the fall again is when the street sweepers really get out there and do the work to keep the leaves out of the storm drains. And we go to a 6-day operation at that point. So we're running on Saturdays. For many of you may have been seeing them on the weekdays. We try to stay out of residentials though on Saturday because obviously we don't want to disturb people on their weekend, but we are trying to get all the leaves and everything off the ground so we don't have flooding issues. And also, as I mentioned, the internal overlay, as we dwindle down in the end of summer there and go into fall, we have a small window where we try to knock off some neighborhood overlays that were pre-selected with council. And so smaller cul-de-sacs, smaller roads that are manageable to do in-house. It's not a task we do often, but a couple times a year we get in and we can do a neighborhood overlay. So this is what our request page is. This is what we see on our side when someone calls in or submits a external service request as well as an internal service request. So it breaks down, these are all completed ones, but you can see the variety of tasks that have been done throughout the month, as well as it mentions if it's preventative maintenance, if it's an internal customer, an external customer, and it really helps us kind of collect the data that we're going to utilize as we go forward. So here's a couple examples of the equipment I've already shared with you. On the left there, you see them doing a road segment replacement. This was a water main that had broken and severely damaged the street. And so we had to wait and let that settle out a little bit, which is very frustrating for the community. We know this, but it's very important that we give it that time, because when there's that rushing water, it really breaks that subgrade down, and we want to make sure it's packed back in before we come back and redo the grade and then re-put the road over top of it. But we do this in-house, as I mentioned already, and it's not, more cities are getting into it. I would say we're one of the, we're kind of on the forefront of it, other than I think Renton is very strong with an internal paving, but we have a really talented group and they can produce a really good product. So we're really fortunate for that. You can, then a couple other photos, you see the mowers I spoke of, the vegetation mowers, they're going that day they were working on the CKC, knocking all the vegetation back along the CKC. And then in the lower picture, there is a sweeper. And that is the quick overview of the street division and what we do. And I'd love to hear some questions if you have questions, and if I didn't hit on the topics that you guys might want to know about. Maybe I covered it all.
Okay, thanks, Ryan.
I have a question.
There we go. We have some questions here. Go ahead.
There seems to be a problem with pavement at crosswalks. It seems to be unique to crosswalks that we have ridging and rutting that's very difficult for us with mobility problems to negotiate some of the main crosswalks in town, including Lake and Kirkland. I wonder why the crosswalks are a particular problem and what can be done to solve that.
I'm not familiar with that being a common problem throughout the city. And so is a Lake in Kirkland, is that the specific one you're speaking about? Or is there other ones?
Most of the ones in the downtown area are rutted and irregular. The crossings of Lake Street and Central.
And a lot of that is the high use, and these are areas that, especially the downtown Kirkland, as you probably are aware, during the summertime, summertime, there's a lot of traffic, a lot of vehicles going through that area, and it will wear down the subgrade of the streets. And we do have some projects planned for that area this summer, so I think a lot of that will be repaired come fall time this year.
But this seems to be limited to the crosswalks where the white stripes are. It doesn't extend away from that particular area.
Is it the white stripes that are causing the
it could be, but the rutting is in the black part.
Okay.
And it's virtually every crosswalk in the downtown area, but certainly along Lake and along Central.
Yeah, I'll have the team take a look at that and see if we can get a better idea of what's going on for you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Taylor and then Sue. Taylor, go
Hey
ahead.
Ryan, thanks for all you do around downtown. So I had a quick question about regarding Park Lane and with the scramble coming in. I know that a lot of the traffic, I think it's like 17,000 cars go up and down uh, through that crosswalk. It's like daily or weekly. Um, and I know that Park Lane has a lot of issues with pavers buckling. And in the MIG report that was completed in September, they had mentioned that there was going to be a possibility of $600,000 worth of improvements to get it back up to the status it should be. Do you know anything about that or have a status update on that?
Yeah, so we are the best update I have right now. I don't have a great answer for you, but I do have an answer. And we have currently started that conversation. A big part of it was getting through that the MIG consultant process and the city council determining what the next steps were going to be, which they have now done. And so since that has been accomplished, we can kind of move forward to start addressing some of the things internally that we wanted to, and we wanted to wait for, again, the outcome of that, the council's decision. So we started those conversations is where I'm getting to with this answer. We started those conversations. We were down there not probably, I want to say 2-3 weeks ago. Quite a few of us, in fact, and we were getting a game plan of where to start and what we need to start planning for. And it is in the works and is going to, we obviously want to be cautious because there will be a lot of activity down there this summer. And so we don't want to bite off too much and cause disruptions throughout the area, but we're definitely planning on starting to make some of those repairs, including what to do with the bollards and some of those the bioswales that have those low fences, adjusting those to something a little bit better, to say the least.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Sue. Oh, Sue, I think you're muted.
I was, sorry. Hi,
There we go.
Ryan, thank you. What happened, what's the process for replacing dead shrubs downtown? What do you have to go through to make that happen? I'm thinking of along Main Street and along Third. And then also in front of the bank where there used to be street plantings and now it's just bare ground and looking ugly.
Mhm.
And another thing is now that we're paying the tax on our car tabs, the extra money, part of those funds are supposed to go to medians. And I'm wondering if those medians along Market Street all the way down to Juanita are going to get some attention.
Yep, good question. In fact, I think we still have, I think you had sent me some of those plants that need to be replaced, in fact, and we still have those in requests that we'll be doing this fall, or this winter, since we're in a decent planting period right now. So that will be taking place soon. Some of these areas where the medians that you just spoke of and the attention, we have a plan to start a council approved a project that is going to be starting here in April. And so several medians on Central will be redone, as well as a couple on Market Street. And the idea is we're going to continue to progress with that plan. So we're going to, we tried to get as many as we could the first go around, and we're going to continue that plan and continue to branch out and start with this new median style. Our goal is to make this a consistent style across the city. Right now we have a variety, whether it's brick or it's astroturf, field turf, I should say, or plants and shrubs. And it's just every area of the city is different. So our goal is to make it a one consistent median process throughout. And so it'll have a very similar, they'll look pretty much the same across the board. Different plants will be used when in areas that have plants. But as far as the overall design, it will be very similar. So it'll kind of really bring the whole city together as one. And then also some of that money from the car tax is also going to sidewalk repairs as well, and some of the safe routes. So that's where the money is also going.
Thank you, Ryan.
You
Thank
got
you.
it. Yep.
Diane has a question. Have you made any progress putting signs on Lake Street to have people park cars on the east side so the street sweepers can fully clean the west side of the Lake Washington Boulevard?
I'm not, can you elaborate on that? Are you talking about signage to, as far as a time frame for sweeping?
In many cities that I've visited, including Boston, they post times when the cars need to be on one location or another to facilitate street cleaning. And forever along Lake Washington Boulevard, the accumulation of leaves in the fall fills all of the collections that's going into the lake. And my assumption was on some level there would need to be a posting saying on Wednesday between midnight and 10 a.m. don't park here. Just like it says at the park, just extend from the park on down, that kind of posting, as well as other locations that I can't testify about.
Yep. Okay, I understand your question. So I have not, I know there's been discussion of that before, but I know there's a lot of hesitation because of the loss of parking, and the community is very vocal about even limiting the times of losing parking. They are not in favor of it, and so it hasn't been a topic that's gained a lot of traction. I could say from my side, it would be nice because it would allow us to get a lot of areas that we struggle with.
I can testify that for 20 years, walking that route at 7 and 8 in the morning, 3 days a week, there was ample parking left on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an argument with no empirical base. It's a sentimental argument, unfortunately.
Yep.
Okay. Anderson has a question. Is there a schedule for street sweeping that is posted? This would be helpful so we can move cars before the sweeping happens.
So that's a good question, and there's not a exact schedule. So we do have on the website, there is a map that shows where we've been, and so that gets updated every night. And so we'd start from the south and work our way north. So you can assume if you see us in the Houghton area, we're moving north from there. But because of the challenges we have with external requests, people calling in sick, and other changes that are out of our control, we can't stick to a really solid timeline. And that has been, we hear it a lot. From the community, they would really like that to be a scheduled thing that's right on every single week or month. But unfortunately, we're just not to a place we can do that. We have, I think I mentioned, we have 3 street sweepers for the entire city. And again, that's doing 668 lane miles. And on average, we can sweep the entire city about 9 times a year. So just a little bit of information there. I don't think I mentioned that. And that's, we're trying to get better and do more, but it's with 3 street sweepers and needing the staff to always be operating on, plus mechanical failures. I mean, when you're running these things 5 days a week, 6 days a week, they do wear down and they do break. So we have we are replacing the ones we currently have, and we will be getting those here soon. So that should eliminate, for the first few years, some mechanical failures. But to answer your question, we do have a map. It's just not going to give you the up to the next day that we'll be there.
Got it. Margaret has I think this is a comment. I hope medians have very low shrubs. I am so short I cannot see pedestrians crossing on the CKC when I'm driving because of the choices someone's made in regards to the bushes. I have this trouble. It's all over, not just in Kirkland. The choice of natural landscaping and shortage of workers to keep them trimmed is also a big problem.
Yep. No, that's a great comment. And that is something that we're paying attention to, and making sure we're selecting the right plants to make sure we have good visibility for everybody, as well as low maintenance.
So in addition here, street signs, also tough to read because of trees and neighboring property hedges, right? So I had a follow-on question to, I think, Anderson's. First one would be, how does the Public Works, how do they prioritize that list that you receive, the external request list? How do you prioritize what gets done when?
Typically, it's liability and safety. Safety being the first one, liability being the second one. They kind of go hand in hand, of course. But that's the number one thing we're looking at is can this cause harm to somebody? Can it cause harm to someone's property? And that's how we'll prioritize that.
Got it. And is there a map for, what's being planned in terms of repairs, overlays, or segment replacements?
Yeah, that should be on the city's website as well.
Okay.
It'd probably be under the, I cannot recall what link it is, but there is in the planning site, it comes with has a CIP link, and it gives all the future projects.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Ryan, for the presentation and taking the time to answer all of our questions today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Next up, we have Amy Alcock, the project coordinator of Public Works, to give us I guess just an introduction as to what's happening with the Marina Park renovation.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Great. Okay, I will share my screen. All right, everyone can see this screen of Marina Park, dock and shoreline renovations. All right, excellent. So I am Amy Alcock, also in the city of Kirkland. I think we're doing a good lineup tonight. I'm also within Public Works like Ryan. So I'm on the design and construction side of things. I manage a variety of projects, one of them being this Marina Park project I'll talk about tonight. I don't typically get to make it to neighborhood meetings, so I'm really excited to be here. And also just a heads up that we're building a website for this project as well. So if you miss any of the highlights tonight, they will be on the website coming up. So first, I just wanted to mention the overall project and kind of how it started. The first problem encountered is that the pier system in Marina Park is aging. And so we're trying to take measures to keep it lasting longer. We've done an initial design phase. So we've looked at costs to see, could we replace the pier system? The answer in the short is no. It's a little too pricey currently. So we went for an alternate option, which is how do we repair it and use and utilize what we have now and keep it lasting longer. So the information we have currently was just that conceptual design phase and figuring out what was feasible for repair and what the scope would be. So currently from that, we determined that the North Pier is in pretty good condition. It's in a much better structural condition than the South Pier. So we won't actually be touching the North Pier at the moment. So our design will focus on repairs of just the South Pier and also some landside repairs and changes, renovations. So that's the overall highlight of the project. In terms of the South Pier repair, just focusing on that, we'll be switching out some electrical conduits and utilities on the pier itself. So that will be utility replacement. And that's for power that's currently failing in a few different places. And then we'll also focus on the structural side of things. So that's replacing pilings that have currently broken on the south side. We are thinking of a potential other improvement, which would be replacing these parts of the decking with light penetrating decking, which is similar to the decking along this main area, and that's for fish habitat. That's a consideration. Are there any questions about the pier itself right away before I go to the land side? Anyone want to know about all the 20 million, $30 million projects we didn't do? That was just in the conceptual design phase.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, cool. So I'll move on to the next slide. I only have 2 slides, so if you have any questions, feel free to keep asking. So on the land side of things, we will be focusing on a section of the stairs you can see here along the beach. If you've walked there in the past year around the park, you've noticed that there's this section that has been undermined. And so that's currently sunk a little below the rest of the walkway and stairs. So we'll be fixing that. There are a few other parts of the park we'll focus on. So a few of them are to do with ADA circulation improvements. That would be that there's some small stairs going up this way. We'd like to replace that with a ramp so that there's more ADA circulation in this area. I believe, yeah, there's also ADA repair modifications here. There's a ramp here that's a bit too narrow, and this ADA parking lot is not compliant. So we're going to see what we can do in this area. The other 2 programming needs I also want to highlight is jumping back up to where the pavilion is. This little section that's not highlighted, well, that is highlighted, is not covered in concrete. It's kind of if you do a perfect circle, our goal is to extend the foundation of this concrete slab out. And so this provides a good place to set up live music and a few programming needs throughout the park when there are different events and you set up equipment in the area. This would also include adding electrical capabilities here for different events. And if you walk around during the holidays, this is also in the area where the holiday tree is. So we'll also add some anchors set into the concrete to attach the tree a bit more securely. So that's the reason for adding slab here. And then the final programming need is my strange little highlight around here, which is about reconfiguring some of the picnic tables in this area to just increase capacity and make it flow a little better. So those would be more surface improvements. And that is my full presentation. Thank you. Does anyone want to see anything else? What the highlights are? Sue, you have a question?
Yes, Amy, have you looked at the pavilion itself? It is in pretty bad repair. There's a lot of, I took pictures down there the other day. Have you looked at that to see what you can do to fix it?
Actually, that has been a pretty long discussion, especially the component of the pavilion, which is the water system and where the water flows. The way it was designed makes it a little tricky to just repair that part of the section, but we've been discussing whether or not to add that to this scope. It's somewhere between a specialized contractor and needing a design. So it's a little funky in the middle. And so we're deciding whether to have this be a capital improvement addition. So that would be my group, or work with maintenance to hire someone who's a specialty repair for the roof in general.
Thank you.
So it's definitely an issue that we're aware of.
Thank you.
Taylor has a question. Will there be any upgrades to the pavilion or plantings? They are all looking pretty run down.
The planting area let me see. The planting area right here will have a bit of repair because that's also where it will be affected by the electrical being added to this area, but not any of the other plantings in particular besides a few around this bulkhead as it affects this area where the picnic tables are.
I have a couple of questions. So what are the current usage rates of the South Pier, I guess? And how does that compare with what the target would be?
In terms of like boat usage and mooring and things like that, Alex?
Right.
I'm not quite sure on my side of things.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're looking for specific numbers, I'm sure I can find them. That's just on the park side. So I know who to ask.
Okay.
They don't have it for me right now.
And then what about, just general total costs, the timing, any closures, things like that? What's the planning?
So there's two different focuses, right? There's the land side focus and the water side focus. Both require a pretty decent amount of permitting. And so that design timeline is going to be all of this year. And so construction definitely will not occur this year, earliest maybe next. What is important to realize and what we want to do is avoid peak seasons in the park, right? And so that is also something to consider. And in terms of funding, we do have cost estimates, but we would really like to get more cost estimates from the consultant as we go. So like I mentioned, we just did pre-design. And so now we're going to be contracting for the full design. And so in each design milestone, we'll have updated estimates. And then we'll actually go to council to discuss what would be the best things to fund out of these options. So more in progress, definitely.
Got it. Sue?
Amy, did you discuss at all doing a huge project, the breakwater and extending the moorage? Did you talk about that? And where is that? Is that a possibility?
That actually was in the initial discussion, Sue. What we start to do is have a huge financial lift right off the bat. And so we were estimating breakwaters. I guess a bit of background on the breakwater, there's just a lot of wave action and wind that goes into this area, and it really batters the piers. And so one of the goals of a breakwater would be, if we build a breakwater, it would extend the longevity of the actual pier system. And so that would also not need to be replaced as often, things like that. So that was what an option we were discussing. The initial lift minimum would be $20 million for a breakwater if we could do it. There are a few permitting implications that we explored, but that would also, the $20 million wouldn't even include replacing the pier system. And so that would just be breakwater drawn around the area. And maybe I can go back here. It would be a breakwater sort of extending this way to protect both piers, but it wouldn't include the replacement of the pier itself. So we're looking at a minimum with piers that people could use of a $30 million project. So we could phase it in a few different ways, but the discussion was that's not something we'd like to consider at the moment.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions? I noticed Diane on the call has a nice photo of Marina Park. I hope I can recruit you to update my slide graphics for future project updates. Or Ryan Fowler, he's got great graphics.
No, I think that's it for questions for now. I know we've caught this relatively early, but thank you so much for attending tonight and giving us this presentation. Do send us a link to the website once it's up.
Can do, yeah.
Great, thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Last on our agenda is just an update to the neighborhood safety program from Don.
Hello,
Hey, Don.
can you see me?
We can, yep.
Oh, yeah, there it is. The way I have my screen, it didn't show up. All right, so I will share my screen and we'll get the latest update on the safety program. Let's see how to do this. So I can switch over to the slideshow here. Okay, so you can see that okay, I assume?
Yep.
Okay, good. Let me move these thumbnails out of the way. This happens every time. Okay, so I'm going to go through the slideshow again. I know everyone has seen this before, so I'm going to breeze through the areas we've already covered, just in case there's any new people that they might get a general idea what the program is about. And the program is to identify pedestrian and bicycle safety issues in Kirkland and to make suggestions for projects that will address those problems. And so the big news is that we have submitted our 2 project suggestions for the 2024 safety program. This is a list of the types of suggestions you can submit. And our 2 suggestions will fit into the traffic calming and the crosswalks sections. All right, our first submittal was for a 4-way stop at State Street and 7th Avenue South. We got this suggestion via email from a neighborhood association member. And these are the bullet points he came up with for the reasons he thought we needed a 4-way stop at that intersection. And there are no lights or stop signs on the 0.65 mile section of State Street between Northeast 68th Street and Kirkland Avenue, creating an environment for speeding. And I think anybody who's familiar with State Street knows that cars get moving along there much faster than would be safe. A 4-way stop would force, of course, people to stop halfway. It's approximately halfway down State Street, so that would create a situation where have a traffic calming effect that the cars would have to stop halfway down, restart, so the overall traffic speed should be reduced. 7th Avenue South is the only street that connects from Lake Street through to 6th Street South, creating a cut through for a lot of vehicles and creates a natural location for a 4-way stop. And it's the most, the busiest intersection, we'd say, on State Street, other than 68th and Kirkland Ave. And so it's the natural place to have one. All the other streets don't go through to 6th Avenue South, so they can't really be used to go anywhere unless you actually live there. So then there is an elementary school nearby, Lakeview Elementary, with kids that cross the street, and having a 4-way stop creates a much safer environment for them to cross. Here's a map of the area there, pretty simple, State Street and 7th Avenue South. And right now there are 2 stop signs on 7th Avenue South, one in each direction, but there are no stop signs on State Street. So we'd be adding 2 stop signs on State Street. Here's an aerial view of the intersection. One thing I noticed that could be a problem actually is that take a look at the crosswalks there and the crosswalk there on State Street and the bump outs that they created to go along with the crosswalk. And you'll see that that crosswalk is pretty far back from the intersection, and the stop sign and stop line there would have to be either further back, and I think that's too far from the intersection. So they probably would have to relocate that crosswalk and maybe reconfigure the bump outs. So that could be a problem. We'll find that out pretty quick. Submittal number 2, our second suggestion was a raised crosswalk at 3rd Street and Park Lane. This is in Transit Center, 3rd Street in the Transit Center. And this would be a relatively inexpensive fix that would accomplish 3 main goals: enhancing pedestrian safety at this intersection at the Transit Center, and it would enhance the non-motorized connection between Marina Park and Kirkland Urban. And the city has identified that as one of the premier pedestrian corridors in the city. So we're walking through the park there, Peter Kirk Park, and then crossing at the Transit Center, and then walking down Park Lane, and then down to the waterfront. So a improved crosswalk there would be a visual improvement, as well as being a safety issue, a safety improvement. So there's a picture of the raised crosswalk. It raises this crosswalk about 6 inches, and so it matches the height of the sidewalks, and then you have ramps leading up to it. As you can see there, that will slow cars down, of course, because they'd have to go over the hump, and then pedestrians would be more visible. Here's a picture of the crosswalk as it exists today. I think everybody's pretty familiar with that. Just as an aside, both my wife and I have noticed it on 2 different occasions that people coming northbound on 3rd Street there will sometimes actually make a left turn right on the crosswalk and go into Park Lane. So just an aside, that's something I think the city should try to make sure that doesn't happen. Kind of a crazy thing to do. So those are our 2 submittals. They have already been submitted to the city. And we have a 3rd submittal. I'm calling it a backup submittal here for a crosswalk on Kirkland Avenue between the 6th Street and the Cross Kirkland Corridor, or Kirkland Way. The street curves over and goes to Kirkland Way, but for pedestrians, they would like to go straight up onto the Cross Kirkland Corridor. And you can see that's right here, this green line. And so if you're walking on this side, the north side of Kirkland Avenue, there's no crosswalks. So you'd have to jaywalk to get across the street to go up onto the trail. So we are proposing a fix for that, a crosswalk roughly where the red line is here, where people from this area, you can see there's quite a few buildings and condos, houses, everything else in that area, fairly dense. So this gives people from that area a way to get onto the south side of Kirkland Avenue, where there is a nice sidewalk that leads right up to the trail. And that's also a route for getting to school, to Lakeview, or even Peter Kirk too. And so it's a good, would be a good pedestrian improvement in that area. And additionally, on the south side of Kirkland Avenue, the sidewalk ends about here. So you're left with the option of basically walking in the street the rest of the way, in a very dangerous situation. So you could cross over, and then the sidewalk goes all the way down Kirkland Avenue on the north side. So it kind of serves 2 purposes. So we have submitted our 2 proposals, the first 2 I showed you. And the next step is the project conferences, and that's February 1st. So that is a week from this coming Thursday, so it's coming right up. And we will get feedback on the 2 projects we submitted, the 4-way stop and the race crosswalk. And that will give us a good idea where we stand, how strong of candidates our projects are. And if we get negative feedback on one or the other of them, where it looks like that one wouldn't stand a chance of winning the sweepstakes here, we could submit the backup one, the Kirkland Avenue proposal. And you can see the rest of the timeline there. And the final decision will be made in March. So not too far off now. We've seen this slide before, but it just shows how the decisions are made to pick the top 3 candidates that will get funded among the different neighborhoods. And so half the score, it's possible score of 200 total. Half the score is decided by the city staff and the other half by the neighborhood panel made up of myself and all the other neighborhood safety coordinators. And there's each side of the equation here gets between 0 and 100 points. They have a total of 200 points possible. So the highest 3 program suggestions in the city get funded and the other ones don't. So that's it. That's the update for now. And after we get the feedback, I'll have more information. That's it for tonight.
All right, thanks, Don. Any questions for Don about the neighborhood safety program and what's coming up? I think that was a great job. And I think that brings us to the end of our meeting for this month. Couple of upcoming events. So our neighborhood happy hour is going to be on the second Monday of February, February the 12th. And the next neighborhood meeting will be March the 11th. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for all our presenters and all the staff from the city for presenting to us today. See you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex.